everybody. Welcome into a very special episode of Bruins Tape to Tape. I'm your main host today, Caroline, and we are joined by a very, very special guest that Maria and I are so excited to welcome to the podcast. You may have seen her on TikTok or on Instagram, sharing her delightful discovery of the game of hockey. And as an all-women podcast, dedicated to sharing our love of hockey and the Boston Bruins, we couldn't be more thrilled to welcome Katie to our special playoff preview episode because this is her first playoffs. So welcome, Katie. How excited are you for playoffs? How has the experience been for you this season?
Well, first off, thank you for having me on. I am both equally excited and terrified for playoffs. I've been told like the most happy, heartwarming stories, and then I've been told every horror story that's ever happened. So I'm just kind of sitting here like in my corner, like, okay, this will be something.
Yes, it is. We this past week for our regular episode, we kind of did like a wrap up of the Bruins season, and playoffs is kind of like the high holy days for all hockey, right? This is Christmas, Easter, all the holiest days.
Tonight is like, Christmas Eve. Think of tonight as Christmas Eve, right? Where you're waiting for Santa to bring you that very thing that you wanted, and you're going to open it up tomorrow night at about 8:20 when the puck drops, and hopefully you're not going to be disappointed with what Santa brings you as a Bruins fan.
I have people coming over tomorrow night, and I've already told them there will be a game on. You will have half of my attention.
Yes.
I'm going to be very busy. Like I have things to do.
It is, and regardless if your team is in the playoffs or not, I was just talking oddly enough to my mailman. So I don't live in New England, but my mailman also happens to be a Boston Bruins fan, and I always hang a game day flag. So that's kind of how we made the connection. And I was saying, this is honestly the best time to be a hockey fan for round one and round two, because you have multiple hockey games every single night. And it's going to be the best games you will see all season, because these are the top teams. Everybody wants the cup, and the playing field is kind of reset, right? Because it doesn't matter what that record was during the year. And it's just all out, everyone putting in 10,000%. It's the best hockey you will see all season. You will be blown away, and then also see people's hearts ripped out of their chests as they're weeping because their team got knocked out.
It's amazing how many people say to me that are casual hockey fans that say, if hockey during the regular season was the same as the playoffs, I'd watch it every day. And it's somewhat unrealistic to expect players to play, I think, to the degree of intensity and heightened level of everything is on the line for 82 games. But there is nothing more pure and more genuine than watching these players go at it in a 4, 5, 6, 7 game series. There's nothing like it on the planet. It's the best playoff in all of professional sports, in my view.
Absolutely. And we're not biased whatsoever.
Of course not. No.
Of course not. So we wanted to kind of get to know you a little bit, and then we'll talk shop. I have a little fun game that we'll get to play before we dive in. But first things first, I have to ask, the book that got you into hockey. I got to know what one that is, because I've read a couple. I'm not going to lie. I am a woman. I read chick lit. What was the book? What was the hockey romance book that got you into hockey?
I keep getting asked that, and I'm going to have to go back and pull up the emails. No, honest to God, because it was an advanced copy, it was very much a, do not release, do not share.
Okay, understood.
Not the real covers, any of that. So,
so it's
I
not out yet.
honestly, it might have come out already.
Oh, okay.
I literally, so I read it. I finished reading at 3 a.m. on January 1st of this year. So I literally kicked off my year with hockey because I was like, I'm not tired yet. Like, it's New Year's. I'll just read this book I have to read. Like, I signed a thing. I'll read it. And yeah, I could not tell you the name.
Yeah. Well,
and I gotta look, but
you'll have to tell us because I'm gonna want to read that book for sure. So thinking about, everything that you've gotten to see, the good, bad, and ugly, and everything in between, you've talked about a lot of your favorite discoveries throughout the season. What do you think is your absolute favorite thing that you've discovered, either about the game of hockey itself or the NHL or something in that realm?
I mean, the goalie hug has to be up there because I mean that's truly the first video that I put out about hockey. I thought it was going to be a fluke because it blew up, and I was like, oh, that's like, it's a one-off. Let me see what happens if I do another one. But the goalie hug was the second video, and that was the one that kind of really made it take off.
Yeah.
So the goalie hug's up there. A lot of it is goalie centric.
They're so special. They're so unique.
Exactly. I think the third video I put out was about Fleury and learning about who he was, and just there's so much with him.
Yep, absolutely. Good choices overall.
Thank you.
So obviously, we love seeing women take up space when it comes to talking about hockey. And it's not like it's, unique to hockey that a lot of times women don't get the space to talk about it. And a major motivator for us with this podcast and starting it up was to make sure that we could have a presence and representation and all that stuff, and just being women who love to talk about the game of hockey. How have you been able to navigate kind of being a new fan of the sport and a female fan at that?
It actually has been, and I don't think this is the case with a lot of things. It has been surprisingly easy.
Great.
In the sense that everybody has been so incredibly welcoming. Like, I didn't expect when I posted that goalie hug video that half of the Bruins fan base would be like, "You're ours now. We claim you."
Belong to us.
You're our fan now. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." But everybody's been really great. And actually the best thing, and if she ever comes out with it as a book, I will be the first one to promote it. One of my followers emailed me. She had done a handwritten hockey guide for girlies. And it is beautiful.
Oh,
and she's partway done with it. She's doing more of it, last I heard. But I was like, I emailed her back. I was like, if you ever publish this, please email me. Like, I will be the first one to talk about this, because it had everything in it.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. Maria's kids, or at least your sons, right, played hockey, and my daughter plays hockey too.
Both of my kids, male and female, both played. Yeah. And they have a passion for the sport as well. They're both Bruins fan, although for a little while my no good son was a Detroit Red Wings fan. I'm not quite sure how I allowed that to happen under my watchful eye, but
I can't fault them there, because for years in college I was a Florida State fan because my parents were Miami Hurricanes fans, and I could not align with my parents.
There you go.
And then I ended up going to University of Miami. So that changed very quickly when that happened. But I do understand the teams of, I'm going to root for them out of spite.
Well, yeah. So if that becomes a book, like, sharing a book like that with my daughter, getting kids involved in hockey for both of us is so important, because, we have a love of the sport, and I'm always certainly, I mean, obviously my kid is 7, hers are my age, so that doesn't count anymore. But I'm always looking for great little books and things to kind of teach her about the game in general, and like all the really fun and cool things that you've been discovering. And I show your TikToks and Instagram posts to her because she just thinks they're hilarious. She loves them. She's like, yeah, I know that too. I'm like, see, all the good things, all the good things.
You're so genuine and natural. It's so heartwarming to watch them, you know, and as I approach the next stage of my life into being, you know, a nonna of a little girl that's going to arrive in June, who will be on skates just as quickly as I can get her on skates. Yes. You know, this is fun for me to do, to kind of, you know, grow the game for women, or think and at least hope that we're contributing to that in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Well, so really, congrats on your grandchild. That's very exciting. But no, that is honestly, so my background is I did a lot of Star Wars content before this, and I'd get people who would be like, hey, I love your videos, but that was it. And I always appreciate that, no matter who it is. But it has been so wonderful to hear and just heartwarming. And I'm always so happy when I see it, of people who are like, I watch these with my kids. My kids and I watch your videos. Oh, my daughter loves this video that you put out. And I'm just like, okay. It's not something I'd ever expect to see.
Yeah.
But it always means the world to me. And getting that from anybody is always just so amazing to hear, and not something I ever expected to hear.
Yeah.
So it's always incredible.
And I have to applaud you for providing content that a parent can say, I can watch this with my child, and I love watching this with my child. So credit to you for doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and I have to say, like, even I've learned some things from your videos, and I've been a diehard hockey fan for well over 20 years and grew up casually watching prior to that. You know, my favorite video, I think, besides your goalie head bonk one, because my daughter is a goalie, so we watch that one actually fairly regularly. But because I never really realized, I was like, oh yeah, that is cute. Like, that's just what you do, and like whatever. But the video about Marc-Andre Fleury and how he thanks his goalposts in French and in English because he doesn't know what language they speak. I actually didn't know that he did that. Like, I knew he would tap them, right? Like, he would touch them extra more than, you know, your standard goalie. But I watched that, and so I was showing it to my daughter, and she's like, I have to do that now. So now when she has her games, she goes out, she's like, I have to thank them in French and in English.
Well, it's only polite. Originally, and I still have the list, because over the summer, I plan to talk more about things that have already happened versus current. But when I first started posting these, I got a probably 2 to 3 page running list of things to look into and talk about that had already happened. And it ended up getting like kind of sidelined because there's always stuff happening in the world of hockey.
Yep.
So, but I think Marc-Andre, after the goalie hug, Marc-Andre Fleury with his goalpost was probably the number one comment.
Yeah.
Of, you need to see this now. And I was like, what do you mean he thanks his post? What are you talking about? And I saw it, I was like, okay, that's pretty cute. Like, I get that.
He is a national treasure, and I saw the news. I think it broke just within the last day or two that he said that is he signing?
He's staying one more year.
One more year.
Yeah.
And then he will be retiring.
Like, I don't know if you know how old he is.
Oh yeah. Everybody, when I first started talking about Fleury, was like, he's retiring this year.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, at least I get to experience him before he leaves, and that's really nice. So I saw the extra year. I was like, oh, this is great. We get one more year. Let's go.
He turns 40. Which is, I don't think, I mean, I've not obviously checked this, but like, if you think about in the history of the NHL, very rarely can you name a player, a forward skater who has played at this advanced level very, very well, pushing 40, right? Like, I think of Joe Thornton or Zdeno Chara, or I think Brent Burns maybe up there as well. Like, some of these guys, grizzled veterans, as we like to call them, but there's not a lot of them. And the fact that he's a goaltender, I feel like that physically is it's a completely different like physical experience that he's putting on his body, and he's going to be 40 in November. But then at the same time, his youthful demeanor, how he lives his life and how he approaches the game, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Surely he's 30, not 40.
Well, and I have to say, I remember I was texting my friend about this. So I have a sports med background. I've worked a lot with athletes. And I remember when I watched, I think my second or third game, I went, wait a minute. They just said the prime for some of these guys is close to 30. Is that true? And they were like, yeah. I was like, how? Yeah. I was just so baffled at how these guys are playing as long as they do at the level they do.
I know.
And I cannot imagine what happens to their bodies as they're doing it. But I was like, holy crap, this is
and
insane.
when you think about the injuries that some of them play with or play through, like one of the things that you wait for, at the end of the season, once the playoffs are over, is to hear about, right, this guy was playing with a punctured lung and a separated shoulder, right? This one, had a fracture here or a broken this or a torn that. And they're playing this ferocious game.
Yeah.
See, that's the part that terrifies me, because I have the intimate knowledge of what those
what's going on,
the long term, how they function, the healing, everything. So when people started telling me that in a live stream one day, and it was like computer gone blank.
Yeah.
Because I'm just sitting there going, wait, what?
It's unbelievable. Especially by the third round and the fourth round, I mean, a guy has to be seriously incapacitated to not keep playing, because and I think that's what kind of makes it the hardest trophy to win in all of sports, right? It's got this reputation, not just because of the general physical nature of the game of hockey, right? It's the fact that by the time you crown the Stanley Cup champion, both teams, the players have all played in at least 100 games, right? And some of these guys have played in all 100 of the games too. And the physicality and the mental, emotional games that they all are all dealing with once the playoffs happen, like, you're just running on pure adrenaline at that point. And Maria mentions, as all of our big Boston Bruins fans who are listening will know, that is literally what happened to Patrice Bergeron in 2013. The man was hospitalized after Game 5 with a punctured lung, separated shoulder, and played in Game 6. Yeah, because that was going to be the elimination game, and sadly, the Bruins lost. But he's like, I'm not going to miss this. Like, these people are insane.
Insane.
Yes,
insane.
It's nuts, but it makes it that much more exciting. I mean, they look like trash by game, 100, because they also love to grow the beard. And
I'm so
beat up.
Excited about the beard. I offhandedly one day was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do a weekly facial hair ranking, and everybody's like, oh, you're doing it. So I'm very excited to start that, because I've heard that some of them are unrecognizable by the end.
There's some I think the worst one I ever saw was Joe Thornton. Brent Burns is up there with the playoff beard, but between he and Joe Thornton, I wouldn't want to run into them in a dark alley with those beards.
No, and it's so funny how, I mean, on the one hand, I feel like I'm seeing fewer playoff beards for whatever reason, than what I remember as a teenager watching. But the beard is also incredibly important to these guys, because I remember, so for a period of time, I grew up as a New Jersey Devils fan, because that was the channel that we got on TV, right? Because I'm from the state of New York, and we got the Devils feed. So that's when I watched a lot. And I was a huge fan of Marty Brodeur. He's the reason why I started watching hockey, another goalie, right? And in 2003, the Devils won the Stanley Cup. And I remember this one story of this one player, you know, he said he ordered like a whole bunch of 8x10s of him like holding the Stanley Cup after winning it, whatever. And he had this disgusting beard and like stitches and bruises all over his face. And he said he was so mad because the guy who took the photograph or to print it and stuff photoshopped it out. He's like, no, I grew that. I got those cuts and bruises.
I worked hard on this beard.
And it was like the most disgusting beard ever. Like half of these guys can't even actually grow a good beard. It was like trash, but it's, you know, part of the kind of quirkiness of this sport that, you know, I certainly never really thought about it until both having a kid and I'm like teaching her the ways and saying like, this is what we do. And, you know, you got to do this when you go out on the game, out in the ice and whatever. And then also just learning all these new other things that you just, as a person who's grown up watching the game, you don't really realize like, that is adorable, or yeah, that is great about what we do. So I'm very appreciative of like this re-education, you know, all these years later. It's so much fun.
That's my favorite one is when people from Michigan are like Red Wings fans, when I'll talk about the octopus and they're like, oh yeah, I forgot that was weird outside of here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
You're throwing seafood on the ice. It's weird.
It's gross because it's real. Like so you're from Florida, right?
Yes.
So your local kind of hometown team is the Florida Panthers?
Technically, it's the Lightning. The Lightning are blacked out, so I can't watch their games.
Okay, fair enough. But, you know, the Panthers, I completely forgot until last season when the Bruins played the Panthers that they have the tradition of throwing the rat.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that rat.
Thank God those are plastic. Thank God.
Yeah, I know. Can you imagine someone bringing a rat as contraband into the building? I had no idea about the catfish. When I watched that video and I saw the size of that catfish, like, you have got to be kidding me.
Gross.
Well, the full circle thing with the rats is my parents were season ticket holders when that started. And my mom was just pregnant with me.
Oh my God. So
that's
it's a
full circle. Yeah.
People were like, oh, well, do you know about the rats? Do you know about the rats? I'm like, that's the one thing I know about is the rats. I have been told the rat story forever.
Oh, yeah. That's, you know, and it's funny because stories like that about there was like a rat there, right? And the guy killed it with his stick, right?
Major rat problem at that arena.
Yeah. It's such kind of, to me, it's such an old timey story because there's this old story and I can't remember the team and when this was, but it was a long time ago when there was a bat flying around in an arena. I mean, this was like 50 years ago or whatever.
Why have I heard this?
And a guy killed the bat with his stick because he was getting annoyed and he popped it too.
I do remember that. See, and in the old TD Garden, the OG TD Garden, the rats were just embraced as part of the crowd there.
And now we have one on the ice all the time. So
all the time.
Let me tell you, that is the one player that I am like, no. Everybody's like, no, not Marcia. I'm like, no, I'm kind of here for it. I love a good menace. Like
you gotta.
He had me. People were like, you realize there's a player that licks people, and I'm like, well, now I need 4 years. Oh, yeah, it's been a while, but I was like, well, now I need to know more. Looked him up. I'm like, honestly, this is funny. Like,
it is. It's what really endeared me to him, and like I'm a huge Brad Marchand fan. I mean, again, I talk about him constantly. I've been a big fan since his true little ball of hate days from 2010 2011 when he first kind of came on the scene, because he was completely unlike any other player that I ever remember watching growing up. I mean, there were no agitators quite like him. And I don't know if it's just because that was unique to him as a player coming in, being so much smaller and needing to really get people to pay attention to him, or if the game changed, and it's entirely possible it's a little bit of both, because like when I grew up watching, we didn't have these agitators who kind of walked the line. You had enforcers who just came out and beat the living crap out of you no matter what. So like there was no kind of like, it's for him, it was like always a little bit of a game. And now there is this player. I mean, maybe the closest thing could have been like a Claude Lemieux type, not Claude Lemieux. No, Claude Lemieux, right? From the Avalanche, right? Yeah. Because he also played for the Devils back in the late 90s. So that's kind of like what endeared me to him. I'm like, oh, but he's also really good, which kind of made it a little bit more forgivable.
Well, the fact he just won that vote of player you hate to play, but
I was just going to bring 2 years in a row.
Yes.
I believe 2 years in a row.
Always somebody will comment on a post and be like, "Oh, I hate him," and somebody under is just, yeah, that's because he's not on your team, and it's always in that order.
Fact. Yep. And there are so many players.
That's like usually how I clap back. Yeah. You hate him, but you take him on your team. So don't give me that.
What cracks me up with him, that man was made for TikTok and Instagram.
Oh, that's going to be his
second
career.
Videos.
I can't wait.
Oh my God. The facial expressions are so good.
TNT loves to get him on their pregame and to try to get him mic'd up. He is a treasure.
Yes.
Mic'd up.
So last year he won Mr. TNT.
Mr. TNT, that's right.
This year, Maria? I don't know.
No, he did not. He did not.
Wasn't one of the Mr. TNT was somebody and his mom this year was the nominee?
Yes, I remember seeing that. And I was like, what? What's
I was
that?
Like, I don't know who this is or who his mom is, but them, yeah.
I'm like, I don't even know who that was.
I just saw and his mom and was
Cooper won. Okay. So why don't we dive into our little game, because I think we might learn some really interesting and fun things here that you've discovered.
Okay.
Before I start asking, I want to ask a pre-question, so that way if you don't have an answer, I won't ask it. Outside of pro hockey, the actual live sport, have you watched any hockey movies, like the gold standard that
I've seen maybe one or two. It has not been many.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll still ask my question.
I have a list of movies I have been given, and at some point when I have absolutely nothing to do, like it's Florida, there's going to be a really bad thunderstorm day coming soon. Yeah. And I'm just like waiting and ready with the movie marathon.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, and wait till postseason. You're going to be bored out of your mind. We'll all be itching for September. Okay. So I got a handful of questions, lightning round. Just give me your quick answer. Maria, you're going to play too. All right. So we'll start with always Katie and then go to Maria. Favorite mascot? There's only one answer.
Legally, I actually have to say Bowie.
Legally,
that is my child. I am adopting a mascot. For those who don't know, Bowie and I have decided that I am now his mother.
Love it.
You couldn't have made a better choice.
I mean,
that was a total accidental situation, and I was like, no, I'm now this mascot's mother. He's fully behind it. So legally, I do have to say Bowie.
Okay. So I'm going to say what everyone wants to say but can't. Friggin' Gritty. Like Gritty. You can't. He is like whoever comes up with his or her stuff. The creativity is off the charts. Just
Gritty
hysterical.
Is a real living being.
I know, right?
Absolutely. Oh! Did I just give it away?
Gritty is a primordial chaos god that just rose from the abyss. Like you cannot tell me otherwise.
We have a bear. We have the bear, but the bear is very PC.
Sitting downstairs.
Yes.
But Blades is very PC.
Yeah.
Yes.
We want to see the old bear from the old Bruins commercials, because that thing kind of was a little ratty looking and really funny. We loved it, right?
Look, we should have all known Gritty was going to be good when his first tweet was threatening to kill the Penguins mascot. Like, that should have been everybody's sign to be like, this one's a winner.
Yes. In our Discord group, we actually have a channel called our Underground Fan Club for all the things that we're not really supposed to be fans of, and we talk about Gritty a lot in there.
Valid. I mean, he streaks willingly and unwillingly. He looked into the eclipse. Like,
I know.
What can't Gritty do?
I don't know.
He's superhuman, and I love. You know, maybe he's got some friends he can, he set me up with.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. So, have you, Katie, been to a pro game yet? I can't remember. I know you've been
technically,
to
yes.
Yes.
So one of my friends growing up was a big Panthers fan. Unfortunately, he had a terminal condition.
I'm sorry.
So thank you. It was a big thing of he would always go to Panthers games, and we would get invited a couple times. So I went as a kid, and I actually, for years, and I think it got lost in one of the many moves between like high school, college, but I did have a Panthers puck for years.
Oh, nice.
And it was because it was from a game with him.
Nice. Oh, that's special. You got to get one of those like glass boxes and like put it on your shelf and have it.
If I can find the puck again, I definitely.
Oh, that's a definite woman cave piece of decor.
Well, I have a puck collection forming downstairs now. People keep sending me pucks, which I love. So there's a pile growing.
You watch out, it's a slippery slope. Our friend Adrian has like this massive collection of signed pucks, like slippery slope. So since you haven't really been to a ton of different arenas, what's an arena that you would want to go see a game at?
So it would probably, it's tough because like an arena I just want to see is actually the Kraken Arena.
Yes, me too.
Every time I see that on video, I'm just like, this looks like the coolest place on earth.
Yeah.
It looks so incredible. I want to see all the parts where all of these like B shots are taken. But also like I want to really go feel the energy somewhere like TD Garden or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
That I think those would all be really cool.
Yeah. Maria, where would you want to go see? What arena would you want to go see? And maybe I'll ask a follow-up. What matchup would you want to see live?
So as I'm gonna be a little bit. Can I give two answers because I want to give my traditional answer because
we can do what we want.
I can do whatever we want, right? It has our name on it. I would love to go to MSG, to Madison Square Garden, and see a Bruins Rangers matchup at MSG. Then the other arena I think would be the bomb to go to, and it would be a fantastic time, is in Vegas.
Ooh,
There's something about that, right? And I've never really wanted to go to Vegas. You know, I'm not a casino girl or the shows and stuff, but that arena looks like it can be lit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have heard story after story, and that is actually one thing I have refused to watch because when I do, I want it to be a blind reaction, and I know it's not the time to post it right now. Is all I hear about is their intro show.
Oh my God. People love it or hate it. It's a love.
And I was like, all right, I'm not watching it. I refuse to see it. And then when I finally am ready to do the video on it, probably over the summer, I'll blind react to it because I was just like, I keep hearing about this.
Yeah.
I'll wait.
They know how to put on a show. Let's put it this way.
It's Vegas.
It's Vegas, baby. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'd expect nothing less.
Exactly. So what's a matchup you would want to see, Katie? Like live?
Live?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. Probably Panthers Bruins. I mean,
that'd be good.
I do root for both of those teams, so I would be excited to see that.
We'll accept that. There's no love lost here for the Panthers.
That's okay.
No, I'm staying quiet on that one. Having been in the building,
and considering I can't watch the Lightning, that left the Panthers. We're back to the whole mother was pregnant with me at the games.
Exactly.
All right. If you're gonna pull on my heartstrings.
That's watching those two teams play. Those were really good matchups to me.
Yeah. For me, the holy grail is seeing a Bruins and Leafs game or Bruins and Habs game. Like, I feel that's Bruins and Habs is the traditional old rivalry. The new rivalry is with the Leafs, and I would just be like an unbelievable game to see. And Maria gets to see that game 1 tomorrow.
Oh my God, have the best time.
It's it never gets old. You know, I've had season tickets for 15 years now, and we've been blessed with, you know, Bruins teams that are competitive and make the playoffs for, you know, during most of my tenure. But it never gets old when you think about going to game 1 of any round of a playoff series. There's just something, you know, electric that happens, you know, in the building, on the streets, you know, even in your offices, right? Where, you know, we've got both Boston sports teams getting ready, 2 Boston sports teams getting ready to make playoff runs, the Celtics and the Bruins. And it will be utter chaos in that area of the city.
I saw the ESPN alert probably about 20 minutes ago of like NBA playoffs. Here's what you need to know. I went, oh yeah, those exist. Whoops.
Yeah, right.
It's like I forgot about that. It's like basketball. Oh yeah.
I know. Well, and then you're going to start to see a whole bunch of new traditions that you haven't seen that are explicitly reserved for the playoffs. Like in Boston, they have this gigantic flag that they pass around the rink, and like it's all meaningful. And, you know, that game 1 of round 1 is so full of promise. Like it's very celebratory because like this is it. This is the kickoff. This is our New Year's Eve. You know, it's so much fun.
And you know, we do a banner captain too, which is really kind of cool. So and oddly enough, most times you don't know who the banner captain is going to be. And this year, the Bruins just announced earlier today that they did. So there's going to be a new banner, a centennial banner, and that the banner captains that will be featured will be playoff heroes of the past.
Well, I think then we know probably who's going to be the first one. Is it
my hope and my educated guess, particularly given the heartbreak that has caused the Toronto Maple Leafs, it needs to be Patrice Bergeron in either game 1 or game 2.
So, to bring you up to speed, in case you've not seen this video yet, there's God, what year was it now? 2013, I think it was. The Leafs and the Bruins were playing, and it went to a 7th game, and it was in Boston. And it was the 3rd period, and the Leafs were up by 3
4-1.
It was 4-1.
4-1.
And there was like a ton of time left, like half the period left. And somehow the Bruins came back, and Patrice Bergeron tied the game to send it into overtime. And then he scored the game-winning goal. And the video is truly amazing. My personal favorite one is the radio broadcast, because there's this epic audio clip that everybody knows that the second he scored the goal, was it Judd, Maria? I don't remember who was.
No, it was Dave Gosher.
Yes.
It was Dave Gosher who made the call on the radio.
And it's one of those epic radio, like broadcasting sounds, kind of almost reminiscent of like, you know, the Do You Believe in Miracles? It's like up there for me with it. He just goes, Bergeron,
3 times.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Gives me chills every single time. And so like he is the ultimate hero in a Leafs series. So it better be.
Oh, that's cool. My fingers are crossed for you.
I know.
We'll see.
So my last question on the lightning round before we talk about playoffs, because I know we could just keep going on forever. Who do you think right now is your favorite player in the league?
Oh no, I hate that question.
Or who do you love to hate?
There's so many. There's so many good ones. Oh no. I mean,
Katie, you might not like my answer to who do you love to hate, but I'm gonna give it anyways.
I know what she's gonna say, and I don't love to hate this guy because
I know.
Well, I will say it's okay. it's not a hate thing. It was just for the first couple weeks. So the love to hate would actually this might piss some people off, would be Sidney Crosby, and it's not because
common
of anything I know about the guy.
Yeah.
It was the first few weeks I started watching hockey were leading up to All-Star Weekend.
Oh.
So all I heard about was Sidney Crosby, Sidney Crosby. Oh yeah, there's a kid taking Sidney Crosby's place. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Why do I care about this guy? Why does it matter? I'm texting my friend this, who's very into hockey. And he's like, oh, that's one of the like top players ever. I was like,
a generation of talent.
Oh, okay, never mind. That makes sense now. But I for 3 weeks was like, I am so tired of hearing this name.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know who you are.
I know. Well, we feel often about like that about, and this is again kind of controversial, both Connor McDavid and Connor Bedard, only because of the oversaturation of the conversation. So at least for me, I'm like, look, incredible respect. I recognize both of those players as generational talents, but can we please talk about someone else?
I will say,
we might be a little, we might be a little jaded.
That was just because I hadn't heard about him as much, but I did. It was again same friend. Who's the Bedard kid? Why do they keep talking about this kid? My friend's like,
oh.
No.
I know, right? It's crazy. Well, there's always because there are so many players, there's always somebody fun to talk about and discuss.
Actually, I do know my full answer. I do know. Not for the love, but the love to hate. Matt Rempe.
Oh, no, I don't love that guy either.
I get
good call there.
I get that it's in this sport. I understand that completely. But again, that sports med injury background, seeing all of the fights, and just the fact that he purposely gets into them all the time, and that there's no remorse for some of it. And I'm just like, I can't deal with that. And I know some people really love him. And I mean, when he first started, I was like, oh, that's funny. Like more penalty minutes than play time. That is really funny. But it just got to a point where I was like, okay, we need to press pause, please. Stop injuring people on purpose. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a growing movement to really kind of cut back on a lot of that. And one of the things that that we'll talk about in a little bit are the penalties that we're going to award, the things that we don't really love about what we saw this past season. But I always kind of think about, the long-term injury effects for these players. We hear a ton about CTE in the realm of professional football, but it's never really discussed. At least I don't hear it discussed with any frequency in the world of hockey, and
it's not discussed in so many things it should be.
You're absolutely right, but it's very dismissed very dismissed in hockey. Yeah, they won't even acknowledge, and there we can go down this rabbit hole, but there are many depositions that were taken as part of a lawsuit that took place amongst a handful of players, where a certain owner claimed he had no idea what CTE stood for. I won't mention any names, but he might own a hockey team here in the city of Boston. So please, fool, okay?
Yeah.
And that's my thing is like, I'm not 100% anti-fighting.
Yeah, there's a time and place.
Correct.
It happens.
Right.
But the instigation of doing it just to do it, that's where I'm kind of like, hey, let's not, like, there's not a purpose here.
Yeah, it's gratuitous at that point, right? Like, what are you doing? You're doing it for attention. You're doing it to make a name so people will talk about you. fine, but at some point also your coach is going to stop playing you because you're actually then doing more harm than good for the team, because then you're just going to get kicked out of the game. And now your coach has to play with one less player.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's like the New Jersey Devils Rangers game.
Yeah.
And we're telling me like, oh, this is insane. This is insane. I was like, I don't get this. I will fully say I do not understand this one bit.
Yeah. And that's some of the antiquated holdout behave, like traditions of old time hockey that were like, it's not really a tradition that we need to bring with us into this century.
Some traditions have a great place in the modern day. Some not so much.
Right. Not maybe to that extent. So let's talk a little bit about our underdogs. Everybody loves an underdog. Going into the playoffs, Maria and I tend to only really pay much close attention to the East because obviously those are most of the games that we see. And I don't know if you'd heard this expression. It came from a recent podcast episode by 32 Thoughts, where they called the race to the bottom for the wild card as the doodlebug race, which is going backwards and whatever. So there were a bunch of teams and there were a ton of fantastic memes. Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Washington, Detroit. Was there a fifth one?
No.
Maybe it was just them. Yeah. Who were you rooting for?
I can't believe I'm saying this, I was rooting for the Red Wings. As much as I can't stand that octopus throw. I loved the idea of them being able to come through and do it, especially after their win against Montreal the night before, and how they had come back after the rally octopus. But it was just like such an insane comeback, and I'm like, this could be a cool story, especially like they haven't. They switched arenas after their last playoffs, so they have not officially announced whether or not they're raising Al the Octopus in the middle of the arena again. That's still up in the air whether or not that'll be happening if they ever make it to a playoff again. So I was like, oh, this would be really cool. And I was in the middle of a weekly D&D live stream I do, and I'm like pulling up my phone like, okay, who's done what? Who scored what? Oh god. And so they won, and then I see the Flyers lost to the Capitals. I was like, no.
I will say for me, I was rooting for Pittsburgh only because, first of all, I think that Pittsburgh games for the Bruins are always highly entertaining. They're very good games. But just to see Sidney Crosby, he last season was the first time in 16 years that the Penguins had not made it to the playoffs. That was basically the first time he hadn't been to the playoffs since like his either rookie year or his second year in the league. So they had a really kind of dramatic, emotional trade deadline situation happen with the trading of Gensel and just a lot of shakeups. And it almost seemed, and they've got an aging core. I think they're still the oldest on average team in the league.
Believe so.
They got Malkin and all these guys who are just reaching the end of their careers. And then all of a sudden it was as if Sidney Crosby was like, we are not going to miss playoffs again. I will personally carry all 19 of you on my back to make the playoffs. And to see that effort. And then he really inspired a number of his older veteran players to do the same. And just to kind of see that, I was like, that deserves something. I want to see that, because I think the Penguins team, as we have known them for pretty much 20 years, is about to go away. And it's kind of like the end of an era. Like everyone's like, what's Sid gonna do? Because he's another one I forget. I think he's 37, Oh,
wow.
And he was, I don't know.
I need these guys' skincare routines.
Right? Oh my God. Well, it helps to be really wealthy, right? Like this
That's
guy,
true.
he's a fascinating he's just as a sidebar, he's just a really fascinating player to kind of look at his career and everything, because I want to say he is also, he's got to be at least the only existing player right now in the league who's like well known, who has a player's contract that is a holdover from before the lockout. Because if you ever go on capfriendly.com and take a look at his contract, what you'll notice is he has something like a 12-year contract, whereas standard max length contracts now are 8 years, because of the last time that from the lockout year, they introduced like changes to the CBA and all that stuff. And so you can't sign a contract for more than 8 years. He had a 12-year contract. So he's still on the same contract he's had for over a decade. I know. So it's crazy. And I don't know, he's either like at the end of it or he's going to be entering his final year. So it's like this huge question mark of
I think he has one more year left on that deal.
I feel like we would have gotten the same like either flurry moment, or we would have gotten the big announcement moment if it was a final year.
And you know what? The summer is a real long time, and he is famous enough, powerful enough, whatever word you want to use, iconic enough that if he went to the owners or, Kyle Dubas and said, I want to leave, they would let him go. So who knows? Maybe we'll hear something in August. We never know.
I've heard a lot about this summer shakeups and all the things that go down, and I gotta say, my anxiety is not ready for that. I do need like a date warning of like, this is when it starts. Good luck.
So you want to mark your calendar for July 1st, because that is the official start of free agency in the NHL. Yeah. And at that point, teams will know how much the cap has gone up to and what extra money they will then have to spend. And that's when you should see some real moving parts, especially this summer. Last summer was a bit of a dud. It was a hard summer because pretty much every team was in cap jail. Yeah. And it's a hard cap in the NHL. It's not anything that you can, fool around with or manipulate with. You've got some wiggle room before you finalize your roster to start the season, where you can be over the cap, but at a particular point in time in September, you've got to be cap compliant. Yeah. And then we have this nonsense that happens in the playoffs, where you have the Vegas Golden Knights, who, if all their players come back that are injured right now on LTIR, they will be, in essence, $10 million over the NHL cap on their roster, but they are allowed to do so. Yeah, but it's a loophole. It's a loophole, and they seemingly are using it to their advantage. I'm not saying that players aren't injured, because I would never say that. Because for a hockey player not to be in the lineup, the player is injured. Right. But, they seemed to have built up a significant number of injuries.
Yeah. And they didn't really start that. The Tampa Bay Lightning popularized that. I think it was the year that they won their first cup, where they had, I think, Kucherov out for like almost the whole year, and then he was able to come back for the playoffs, and they went all the way. So it's a fun thing to kind of witness. And in June, there's a certain date when you'll also start to see movement happen, where all of a sudden you might start to see a bunch of trades as teams attempt to shed cap money, so they can prepare. Because I would imagine we will know, or at least the GMs would know before the first, what the cap is actually going to go up to. Because like literally you're going to see such a huge flurry of these signings happen on the first. we all know they've been negotiating this whole time. Like,
Well,
so they have to know what they're working with.
The one I'm waiting for, and that'll be the one day of nobody talk to me, nobody come near me, will be if/when one of the Bruins goalies gets traded.
I don't think that's happening.
But I have heard so many mixed reviews on that.
I'm not as confident as you are. I'm not as confident as you are, Caroline. I'm not as confident as you are.
If it happens, everybody just give me my space to grieve. I will be sitting there with my Gritty plush behind me and just like in fetal position, looking at my little like sticker goalie hugs.
I think the issue will be what the value someone else puts on one of those goalies and what your potential return would be.
And I'm sure also based on playoffs this year, I'm sure there's so much.
Yes, no, right. It's there'll be a lot of drama in the off season for the Boston Bruins whenever that off season begins.
During the spring trade, I was oh my god, my mother was going to kill me because I was out shopping with her and it was leading up to that 3:00 deadline, and I'm just sitting there on my phone like refresh. Oh god, another one. Okay, it's not them. Refresh. Okay, they're still together.
Yeah. It's exciting because we jokingly said for the last 2 years or so, the trade deadline started to resemble Black Friday, where it's like, okay, well, Black Friday is no longer Friday. Now it's at 5:00 in the morning. Oh, now it's at midnight. Oh, Black Friday is now on Thanksgiving. And like you started to see all these trades happening like around the All-Star break or well before. Like I think last year Bo Horvat got traded and it was like January. And then there was no like big day. And then this year it finally kind of happened where it was that big day. And like, okay, we were excited that it happened again. Like we like it that way. We like our surprises.
Thank God people told me, oh yeah, it can happen afterwards too, because my mom and I were like, oh, it's over now. I can relax. And then I get an alert and I'm like, no. I was finally de-stressing. Leave me alone.
Well, yeah, the extensions and things, because it ultimately changes what could potentially happen in the off season. Like, everybody was totally crushed that we didn't get Noah Hannafin, and then crushed again when he signed an 8-year extension in Vegas. And we're like, oh, all right, so that's really like the nail in the coffin. But so our underdogs who are actually in it, we've got the Islanders and Washington. Of those two teams, who are we guessing might actually, will either of them make it out of the first round? Do we think they have a shot? Washington is playing
the Rangers,
and Carolina is playing the Islanders.
Okay, so I know the Islanders, Carolina, I will fully say I'm rooting for Carolina.
Happen.
I don't know much at all about the New York teams.
Yeah.
And I'll say, other than the fact that Wilson and Oshie smack each other on the butt before games, I know nothing about the Capitals.
The Capitals got in by like sheer will, and between those two teams, if I had to bet on a team, which I actually did put a little bit of money down on the Capitals to win that series against the Rangers.
Yeah.
I think it would be a great upstaging moment.
Huge.
Especially with how big the Rangers become this season and just what they've done. And I mean, that'd be interesting to see because I keep hearing about this President's Trophy curse.
It is a curse. Okay.
So I'm just like, are we going to see that? What's going to happen here?
You might. It would be a massive upset, but it's also kind of a thing. It's infrequent that the team that wins the President's Trophy actually then goes on to win the Stanley Cup. Like it happens, but I think
it's been a while.
Washington, I can't remember if Washington did it. I think Washington did it in 2018, and prior to that, it was Chicago in 2013. So
I remember seeing the little graphic of it on the NHL Instagram page.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often.
The only one I remember is Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing is, it's fun to watch. You want to talk about like some weird superstitions, how in the East, I don't know if they do this in the West, with their conference championship trophy, but in the East, a lot of the teams will not touch that trophy if they win.
Correct.
However, Tampa Bay did every time, and they won 3 out of their 4 final appearances. So that's always interesting. Yes. For the powerhouses, we got several really big teams that are expected to do well, but obviously they can't all do well. Who are you feeling confident about? Any hot takes of who you think might blow it? We got, Vancouver has been at the top. Winnipeg has been having a season. Dallas out west, in the East, we got the Rangers, Carolina, Boston, more partial, but people could argue if they've been a powerhouse. Somehow they have limped into first place most of the season. But who are you excited to see and expect to kind of take care of business?
So that's a lot of people ask, like, who's my favorite team? Have I figured out who my favorite is? All of that. And honestly, when it comes to playoffs, I'd say there's at least like a third of the teams, might even be half, that I'd like be really excited to see win. Yeah. Just because I think it'd be either a cool story, or I've learned things about the team, or in Dallas's case, they're the only ones that follow me on social media. So whenever somebody's like in Dallas, I'm like, love them. They're great.
They're great. Yeah.
Tip of the hat to the Dallas Stars social media people.
They do have a great team, though. I love their videos.
Yes.
But no, I mean, I think there's a lot of good matchups. Like the Florida on Florida matchup.
Phenomenal. Could not have a better first round.
That is going to be insane in this state.
The ratings are going to be, I would think, through the roof between the Bruins and the Leafs, an iconic Original Six matchup. And then you're going to have the broadcasts in Hockey Night in Canada. And then the Florida on Florida series.
Yeah.
Those series are must-watch TV.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I saw those because those switched pretty last minute. Because originally it was
yes, it was.
Yes.
It was Boston versus Florida originally.
We thought we were going to get Tampa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We thought we were going to get Tampa.
I saw that. I woke up to that one morning and was just like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yep.
It couldn't have ended any better for the National Hockey League.
Yep.
Yeah.
That cap better go up.
I think those two pairings are going to be just insane.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm really curious and interested to see how some of the teams play. I mean, there's so many that just have performed so well since I started watching. Because I mean, that's the other thing. I wasn't watching the first half of the season.
Yeah.
I got in during the second half completely.
Yeah. And you didn't see, last year, Carolina knocked the Islanders out of the playoffs last year. So the fact that they're starting up first round against each other is actually really great. That makes a great story. Same thing with Edmonton and LA. I believe that was the first round matchup last year too. And there are 4 Canadian teams that are in the mix, and they're not playing each other, which is like massive. For the
one tradition I am so excited to hear about and see like video of, because people were like, oh, wait until you see this, I'm so excited to see more of the Winnipeg Whiteout.
Oh yeah.
Because I have been told about this for months now. Just wait.
That is a good team. Like I was just about to say, I'm going to be tuning into that Colorado Winnipeg series, because Winnipeg's got a legit chance to make a deep playoff run.
Yeah, with that goalie. Yeah. big time.
He's been the
That's
best
what
goalie the best goalie in the league, you know?
Yeah.
If he doesn't win the Vezina, something screwy is happening in St. Louis, but
well, votes were in today. We've got like a whole bunch of people who are probably going to be on the ballot for Hart Trophy. So that's essentially, I don't know if you've gotten into.
I have seen the names. I know nothing of what they mean.
Yeah. So the Hart Trophy is obviously there's a handful of awards that go out that are strictly statistics based, right? Like who has the most points, who has the most goals, what goaltender tandem allowed the fewest goals. Like those are obviously, you can't argue with them.
Right.
But then you've got things like the Vezina, which is very subjective, and the Hart Trophy being the MVP. And that's going to be really interesting to see who's on the ballot and who ultimately wins. And what's great in the hockey media world is they publish their ballots. So you know exactly how players finish and who voted for whom.
And who voted for who.
Yeah. So that's really cool to see and kind of, understand how people are thinking out there. So, and the best part is because it happens at the end of the season. It doesn't matter who's in the playoffs or how well or how poorly they do in the playoffs, So, I mean, I'm fully expecting, names like McDavid, Panarin from New York, Kucherov, because he's just ridiculous.
Well, now that makes sense. If I keep seeing on Tampa Bay's Kucherov for MVP hashtag, and I'm like, what? I was so confused because I was like, why? If they're picking their own team's MVP, why do they have to keep campaigning? But now that makes sense.
Yeah. It's so funny to listen to all the talk radio and the podcasts, because they'll a lot of those folks are voting members, and so they'll say how they define what is an MVP. Is it the best player? Is it the player who can get the team to do X, Y, and Z? It's such a great kind of discussion over what these awards mean. I mean, my favorite one, and regular listeners of the show will know, I love to talk about the Norris Trophy, because that is it's a very broad definition, is for the best defenseman. And in recent years, it has turned into, well, we're just going to give it to the defenseman who has the most points or scores the most goals. And so there's, this whole debate now. It's like, well, is that what that award really means? And what do we do? And so it's interesting. Like for an awards show, it's meh, but it's cool to see the results and kind of how
I'll be interested to see all of that.
Yeah, definitely. So we're almost at the end of our time, but definitely want to get maybe some hot takes from you about who's going to surprise us in the playoffs. Who's our dark horse?
Oh, I don't know if I know enough to answer that. Oh, actually, no, I do know my answer because it's what I've started broadcasting online. The dark horse is me. I am going to win the Stanley Cup.
You are, yes.
No, I started putting that out today because I refuse to jinx another team.
Very real thing.
Early in my journey, somebody asked me in a comment section who I thought would win based on their mascots, and I said a team. And they lost that night, and they were on like a record-breaking streak. Some Canadians might not be happy with me on that one.
Oh no!
So when it comes,
wait a minute! I think I know who you're talking. Oh, I think I might.
Getting too close to like who's going to win. I'm like, I'm out. This is my first season. You cannot blame me this time.
No, I'm. I want to see Nashville do well. I like them. I like the direction they've been moving in. They've been kind of silently moving up. They're building.
They got on my good side after that whole thing with the not going to see you two.
Yes.
But that's the fact we had the polar opposites of Nashville not going to the Sphere and doing amazing, and then the Red Wings adding a patch for the first time and losing forever.
If that's not the most amazingly perfect example of how and why all hockey players, even when they tell you that they're not superstitious, they'll call it
superstitious.
They'll say, "I've got routines." No, you're superstitious. It's perfect.
I get it.
Perfect.
I totally get it. That I was superstitious working with teams,
Yeah.
let alone being on one.
Yes, exactly. Best moment of the season. Who are you giving your stick tap best moment? And it could be any area of hockey that you've seen.
Okay, it's between two, and both of them are 1,000th game moments.
Yes, we've had a lot of them.
So either Flurries, just because it was great to see that and have just started being involved in all this and learning about it as this is happening. But the other one, which a lot of people don't talk about, is Marchand's. The fact, like, you could see how much it meant to him.
I was at the ceremony game. That was a beautiful ceremony.
I'm so jealous. But just seeing the video, the close-up of him as he is just holding tears back.
Yeah.
Was just like, okay, this is really cool. This is why it matters. It means a lot to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was definitely a good one.
Yeah. Those are, I would have to agree, those are pretty fantastic. I mean, when you again truly understand for both of those players who they are, where they've like come from throughout their career, and really what they represent, it makes it even that much more special. Because with Fleury, he's probably, for me, hands down, my most favorite like person in the entire NHL. Like I love this man. I think he's such a good person, such an amazing player, phenomenal, instant Hall of Famer as soon as he's eligible. We will never see a goaltender accomplish what he has accomplished in his career ever again. As we move into this era of tandem goaltending, which is definitely a healthier, better thing for goaltenders' bodies. Yes. So we'll never see a goalie play 1,000 games ever again. We won't see that unless they change how they do the game again. We won't see that. And the fact that he is in the top 5 most wins, like these are records that are held that like it's going to be a long time before anyone can reach them. And it's going to be that much more harder as we see more and more tandem goaltending.
Right. It's not even a win. It's an if.
And how many times is his name on a cup?
Yeah. A whole bunch. I
tell people, I feel like there's 3 things that transcend teams.
Yeah.
Marc-Andre Fleury's one of them, of everybody loves him. The goalie hug is another. Like you'll see it when even they're playing in an away game. The minute they hug, the whole stadium cheers.
Yes.
Yep. And then the third is gritty.
Again, you just named 3 national treasures. I mean, why would you not love this sport? It's amazing. It's the most exciting.
We just came up with the public service announcements for the National Hockey League. Okay,
these are the 3 things you all can universally agree on, right? No matter what.
Yes.
We can hate each other and wear our rival jerseys, but this is what we can all hang our hats on together.
Exactly.
And the playoff specific thing that I think everybody absolutely loves, the thing that I think the NHL does a phenomenal job, and I don't know if you've seen one yet. I've not. Have I seen one yet? I don't think I have. The advertisements for the Stanley Cup Final.
Like if you don't get chills, you're not human. I'm sorry. If you don't get chills.
I don't watch pro football. I don't even watch college football anymore, really. Yeah. If there's a national championship on, the second the like intro stuff starts, I'm sitting there just like, oh my God, they work so hard.
If you haven't seen them, I mean, they're all over. There's an Instagram account that someone had created that they throw all the commercials on there. You know, I mean, they're amazing. They are amazing commercials. You got to watch them all. I'm excited for the commercials.
I understand that completely. That's why I watch the Super Bowl every year.
Right. It's right up there. I feel like we could just go on for another 5 hours, but I'm sure also our listeners are probably like, okay, I gotta go do some other things now. So we'll wrap up. But what's
I have a very important, crucial question.
Oh, please,
boy.
yes.
Katie,
Yes.
who are you going to be rooting for
She
in
just
the
said she
Stanley
wouldn't
Cup
do that.
playoffs?
I'm rooting for me.
There you go.
I'm gonna
There
win.
you go.
Can I ice skate? No. Have I held a hockey stick? I don't think I have. But I personally am going to win the Stanley Cup.
Yes. Yes.
Somebody did say, hey, if you own a Stanley Cup, like you could win the Stanley Cup. And I was just like, I own a knockoff. Does that count? So yeah, me and my knockoff Stanley Cup are gonna win the Stanley Cup.
There you go.
We're ready. We're prepared.
There you go.
And
Okay,
I can tell you from a couple weeks ago, the ice skating venture will never happen. It's really bad. It's so bad.
I love it. I love it. Well, which game are you going to be tuning into tomorrow first? I think there's like a whole bunch. I think there's one that starts.
The first game is 5 o'clock. The team, Katie, that I think you said you had an interest in. The Islanders are playing the Hurricanes at 5 p.m. tomorrow, and that will lead into the Bruins game.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I'll probably have both of them on.
It's going to be a whole evening of hockey.
Which,
and if you haven't,
I'm glad because I misread the infographic originally, and I thought that all 4 on there were playing at the same time.
That'd be terrible.
Like all 4 games were happening, not at the same time, but like same day. And I was like, oh my god, how am I going to watch 4 games in a day? Then I realized Saturday, Sunday, and they had in the original post they had actually mixed up the infographic.
Oh.
So I was like, thank God,
yeah.
I cannot take 4 games.
Thank God. Well, and that should be a fun, like an extra fun game. Like I'm excited to watch that because both coaches are former players with very interesting reputations.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know about Rod the Bod,
I will be Googling later.
Be Googling Rod the Bod, Rod Brindamore.
He's not one of my faves. Let's put it that way.
And the all-time, one of the greatest goaltenders in the history of the game, Patrick Waugh, who also has a heck of a temper. So it should be great watching the two of them scream at each other and scream at the rest.
It's going to be good. Yeah, it's going to be good viewing.
Wait, which team does Patrick coach?
He coaches the Islanders.
Okay, so I'm not crazy.
Yes.
And he famously
in my comments, and then I kept I tuned into an Islanders game, and I was like, that name seems really familiar. That's okay.
He famously walked off the bench during his tenure with the Montreal Canadiens and basically said, I'm done.
Which I learned even more of the backstory of that great documentary on I think it was ESPN called Unrivaled. It was about the rivalry between the Avalanche and Detroit and like how that moment happened and all the things that kind of went on from there and how he ended up in Colorado and like, it was fantastic. It's a whole bunch of movies. I hope that one's on your list as well.
It's a never-ending list at this point. Good news. It thunderstorms a lot in Florida. I'll have a lot of day. Maybe, hurricane comes through, set up my little generator, watch my movies.
Watch your documentaries, watch all your movies. It's going to be a good time.
Exactly.
Thank you again. I hope we can connect again soon to see how your teams are faring. If you're how you're feeling about witnessing your first playoffs.
The next one, I can already tell you any podcast that has me on during playoffs, it's just gonna be my hair's sticking out to here. I'm sitting here like holding on to a stuffed animal, just like, okay. Playoffs are going great.
Oh yes. Oh, the stress and anxiety. It's
I have not been stressed about a playoff of any sport in a very long time. This is just going to be something.
Yes. Well, we're excited to see how it goes for you, and
I'm very excited.
Hear your take on the other side, how you survive.
Yes. Here are my top 10 coping mechanisms.
I was just going to ask, what is your go-to therapeutic or Zen moment?
I'll have plenty by the end of this.
Exactly.
Look, during the I will tell you, during the Super Bowl, like, I'm not a pro football person, but that game just kept going and having so many big things happen. I sat there with a thing of cookies and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna eat cookies until the end. It's fine.
Yep.
And then they're like, oh, we're going into overtime. I'm like, I've had too many cookies. What do you mean we're going into overtime? Oh god.
No more room.
My go-to is a bag of red Twizzlers, the biggest bag I can find. I just rip it open and start just like.
I'm gonna have to find something that I can't eat quick this time.
I do popsicles. There are popsicle sticks all over the living room at the end of the night.
Popsicles could be good, or like a good sour candy or something.
There you go. You can't do that too fast.
Sour Patch Kids, good call.
Oh no, those I just pop. I will decimate a bag of Sour Patch Kids. Like your head, something like that. That it takes some time.
I love it. Oh my god. Well, as always, we're so appreciative. For any new friends watching, listening, certainly check out we have show notes. We release every week, typically on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, although as we go into the playoffs, sometimes
it's there. Yeah, the recordings are going to be TBD, folks, but we'll have regular episodes based on the Bruins playoff schedule and game schedules.
And we'll keep going, as we said in our last episode, we'll keep going till the bitter end, even if the Bruins aren't there, because we just love the game of hockey and we're going to be watching all of these games. So follow us on X, on Mastodon. If you're listening, we're on YouTube. If you're watching us, take us on the road because we're on Apple and Spotify. So leave a like and a listen. And again, thank you, Katie. You want to just share out your handles, where people can find you?
So I am pretty much everywhere under the Giacobra, except for Mastodon. Haven't done that move over yet. And then I do want to throw out that I do have a shop called Giacobra Sells.
Yeah.
Where I sell a lot of goalie themed things, but also a lot of stuff that says "Let's Go Hockey" on it, because I think it's a great community that the sport has, and that just the idea of let's go hockey versus a specific team is really fun. So yeah, just throw that out there. But yeah, I'm everywhere.
Good. Excellent. Yes. As as one of our favorite SNL skits was, let's do that hockey. So
I said it in a video and everybody, have you seen the skit? Have you seen the skit?
No,
right? What skit?
Let's do that hockey. Well, as always, thanks everyone for listening, and go Bees.
Go Bees.